It certainly isn't news that prisons are violent places. And I guess one of the questions that has come up, and one of the questions that's been, I'd say, somewhat controversial, is whether that prison violence comes about through what we would consider to be deprivation. And when we say deprivation, we mean deprivations of goods, services, liberty, loss of liberties, loss of things that people would normally have on the outside, or whether that violence really has been imported from the outside. And imported from the outside basically meaning that, hey, we know prison is full of violent folks, but did those violent folks already come into the prison with those violent tendencies? So in other words, they just brought the violent tendencies with them, and so therefore you have prison being a violent place. I would suspect that it's really a combination of both of them, although we can't dispel the notion of the deprivation in really many of the so-called adaptive roles that people have to assume when they're in prison. Those adaptive roles really beg to the question, if you were incarcerated, how would you do your time? Would you in fact just do time, which means basically seeing your prison time, your jail time as the cost of doing business, especially if you're a career criminal. You commit a criminal act, you may have to do 6 months, 2 years, whatever it happens to be. Is that the cost of doing business? So would you just be doing time? Would you be gleaning, which is basically means, hey, taking advantage, full advantage of all programs, services that the facility would have to offer as a way to better yourself. And certainly folks can go ahead and take advantage of programs, educational opportunities, counseling, and so forth to help them in their re-entry out into the outside world. Of course, and we can't be naive to this, some folks are going to go ahead and take advantage of those programs, participate in those programs, because of the fact that they want to look good and perhaps get out early. Suffice it to say that happens, and we know that. Some folks that basically have an adaptive role, or what's been considered to be an adaptive role, what's called jailing. Now, jailing basically is taking a look at an inmate who really wants to build a career within the facility. They want to go ahead and basically move up the inmate ladder, so to speak, the inmate social pecking order. They want to be top dog in the facility. So they see themselves as a long-time occupant of that facility, and they want to make a life for themselves and essentially within that facility. The other role, and I don't know if I would really consider an adaptive role, is that of the disorganized criminal. And the disorganized criminal, you see a lot of folks coming into the facilities who have really some significant mental health problems. Tongue-in-cheek, it's often been said that the #1 mental health provider in the state of Alaska is actually the Department of Corrections, which is really a sad reality. There's many folks who are in our correctional system that have mental health issues and mental health problems, and certainly labeling them as a disorganized criminal may be fairly accurate in that they don't get along well with others. They tend to be victimized by others within facilities. They don't do well. They don't follow rules well. They tend to be put in segregation more often than others, and so forth. So that they fit a kind of outside the realm of what we would normally see with the jailing, the gleaning, and certainly folks who are simply doing their time who may be a little bit more of a sophisticated person. So the question I have for you, though, in closing is, if you were incarcerated, how would you see yourself doing your time essentially? How would you pass the time? Would you take advantage of services? What would you do with yourself? And certainly, as we can imagine, boredom would certainly be an issue.